Canada's Confederation in 1867 made possible everything that followed for Western Canada. It made possible the acquisition of Rupert's Land from the Hudson's Bay Company. That land was seen as an important bridge for Canada, needing to anchor British Columbia to the Dominion and to fend off those aggressive Americans. What's important is not just the fact of the acquisition, but the manner in which this happened. And I think nobody said it better than Chief Sweetgrass in 1871 when he said, "We heard our land was sold. We didn't like that. This is our land, it's our property, and no one else is to sell it." So the fact that Canada was able to acquire the land is directly attributable to Confederation. The relationship did not get off to a great start. Confederation, 1867, really more importantly for the West, 1870, when the land was, that territory was acquired. 1873, the mounted police are created to head out there. 1874, Treaty 4, important for the Indigenous people of the South. Treaty 6, 1876, also important for the Indigenous people. But 1876 also marked the enactment of the Indian Act. So for the Indigenous people, the relationship between Canada and themselves, the primary documents, the important documents, were the treaties. For Canada, the important document was the Indian Act. And everything that followed comes from the lack of consultation, the lack of, I think, acknowledgement that the Indigenous people were legitimate people, that it was their land. The land was regarded as empty, the land was regarded as wild, the people were regarded as flawed. The relationship got off to a rocky start, and 150 years later, I think we're still looking for ways to right that, to make it less rocky. The Hudson's Bay Company had received the land through the Royal Charter, and they decided to unload it to the Canadian government. The Canadian government was happy to get it for a song, but nobody spoke to the Indigenous peoples of the territories. They weren't at the table, they weren't consulted, they weren't deemed important to be consulted. And I think that that's what I mean by the manner was arbitrary, dare I say, high-handed. The Mounties were an iconic symbol of Canadian power and authority in the Northwest Territories. They were not just the eyes and the ears of the government, they were the arms, in every sense of the word, and feet, boots on the ground, and they were an armed force. And when encouragement began to fail, when government policies became more draconian, when government policies appeared to be committed to starvation, immiseration, destitution, cajoling and encouragement wasn't going to work, and it wasn't very effective. The mounted police do represent the face and the power of Canadian expansion into the West. Their importance is rivaled on the ground by the role, work, and power of Indian agents in the day-to-day lives of Indigenous people on the ground. There was tension between these two arms of the Canadian state. Sadly, I think that Indian government policy trumped the rule of law in that regard. Big Bear's terrible experience of criminal justice is really, I think, embodied in that photograph, but also further expressed by the fact that although he and Poundmaker and others were pardoned within months of their sentence, months of their incarceration, they didn't survive. They didn't. One arrow died on his way home. Didn't make it out of Manitoba. Poundmaker, Big Bear died shortly thereafter. So I describe that as sort of death by incarceration. So I think that the role of the Northwest Mounted Police in the relationship, the Indigenous people and the expansion of Canada, by the end of the 19th century, they were committed to enforcing the law rather than encouraging compliance.